Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. Typically, what I will be doing is another episode on the crazy bills that have been going through the Oklahoma legislature that were introduced so that they can come through the 2024 session. But there's something much more interesting and sinister happening that I feel needs to be talked about. And that happens to do with the conservative values of political violence. As I was thinking about putting together a show today, two things popped up that happened just today within the last 24 hours. One was that the feds arrested a guy out of Tennessee who claimed to be a sniper for a militia whose full intent was to go to the border to start shooting Border Patrol police and immigrants coming across so that he could start a border war, an actual war, civil war in the United States. This isn't the first time somebody's had this crazy idea. Actually, the boogaloo boys did it during the BLM protest. The George Floyd protest, they figured, hey, we can use this to foment violence, blame it on BLM, and then we can start a race war. You had a guy from Texas who went up to Minneapolis and burned the police station and shot it up, trying to blame it on BLM. You had Umbrella Man, who came to be known as a known white supremacist that broke the windows of the AutoZone there and tried to burn it down. Also with the Wendy's too, so that they could blame the left, BLM, George Floyd protest, and get everybody riled up to start a race war. This isn't anything new. But that happened just in the last 24 hours. And now another report, a lady who sits on a school board in Utah, what did she do? Well, she pretty much doxed a 16-year-old basketball player questioning her gender. Well, she wasn't transgender. She's actually female, but this garnered death threats against a child. That's what this lady's done. And come to find out, this isn't the first time she's done outlandish things in social media posts. One time she was calling us, go get our muskets to go after people that she doesn't like. So here we are, a conservative going after a child because she thought they were transgender. Took the post down and then goes, well, in this day and age, we just don't know. So I'm just trying to be cautious. No, you're not. What you're doing is you're fomenting stochastic terrorism. In other words, you're stoking people up, getting them riled up, and then sending them, instead of you, to do violence against people, to intimidate people. It's for your political will. It's absolute terrorism is what we're talking about here. And that's what's going on. This has just been in the last 24 hours in those two cases. So then I started digging around and I found a lot more. This seems to be a conservative value. And it is a conservative value today. Conservatives are very willing to use violence to get their political will. And they're willing to use stochastic terrorism through their followers in order to have it done. Here we go. GOP lawmaker calls for the murder of immigrants. Here we go. Border again. Guy from Georgia, Mike Collins, called for the murdering of immigrants. We should shoot them. We should be allowed to shoot them when they come across the border. Here we go again. Same thing that happened today. This guy's backing it. I wonder if our leaders, like this guy Mike Collins, Republican out of Georgia, saying stuff like this doesn't foment the kind of violence we see from the guy from Tennessee going down to the border saying, yeah, I'm going to shoot some border patrol and some immigrants. Well, I got my leaders that are elected in Congress saying that that's what they want done. So this is how it works. See, stochastic terrorism. In other words, I'm not going to go cause violence as a political official, but I'm going to rile you guys up, and hopefully you will. And then I can get my political will done. Now, he's not by far the only one who does that. Now, the lady from Libs of Chick Chock, Raya, whatever her name is, I can't ever pronounce it, so I just call her Rude Chick. That's Kaya Rude Chick. That's as far as I know which her name is. Anyway, she does it too. She foments stochastic terrorism among her followers. So she doxes somebody, tells people about this one person, like my friend Sean Cummings. This has just recently happened. She blasted him, saying that, well, if he's against me, he's for porn in schools, which is a bifurcation failure in logic, but her followers believe it. That's all they go on. If you're against her, then you're for porn. Well, then he's a sicko. He's for porn. He's a groomer. He's a pedophile. So now Sean gets a whole bunch of death threats aimed at him, prank calls or whatever, because this lady, Kaya Ruchik, decided to stoke up her followers and have them commit acts of terrorism against my friend Sean Cummings. That's what stochastic terrorism is. And this goes beyond that. We see all kinds of different ways conservatives use violence as part of their values. Clay Higgins, there's another guy, representative out of Louisiana in the U.S. House of Representatives. Anyway, he loves to foment violence. He loves to be violent. He actually attacked a guy out on the square in Washington, D.C. for just having the audacity to have a speech with other people while he was trying to give a conference. Went up and grabbed the guy. Actually grabbed him, bear hugged him, and threw him down. That's what Clay Higgins is. He's a very violent guy. He loves to use violence to get his political will. He's even said, hey, he's ready to fight. He's ready to fight. I'm ready to fight. And he was talking about Jack Smith. He was talking about the DOJ lawyer, Jack Smith, saying he's ready to fight him. He's ready to kill Jack Smith. He's ready to do this. He said, hey, Jack, your days are numbered. And what he means by that is he means he wants him dead. I'm not kidding you. And this isn't the only time he said stuff like this, that he's ready to fight. He's ready to go to war. He's ready to kill his fellow American citizens because they disagree with him politically. And there's Clay Higgins, a conservative, a Republican, who's ready to use violence to get his political will. Goes on. So now we have another thing. Let's talk about the Supreme Court in Colorado, right? So the Supreme Court in Colorado came out and said, hey, yeah, after looking at all the evidence and everything else, Trump's banned from being on the ballot in Colorado because of the 14th Amendment. Well, this garnered about 900 plus death threats against the Supreme Court in Colorado. Not only that, a guy actually went so far as to break in, set off the fire alarms, which caused millions of dollars in damage, and shoot the place up. That's exactly what he did. And so he got caught. Of course, these people get caught. Like the guy that went down to the border saying that he's going to shoot immigrants. I'm a sniper for the militia. Well, the FBI arrested him before he could do anything. The guy in Colorado, well, it wasn't before he could do anything, but it was after, and so he's sitting in jail. And this is what they do. So, but they're good with this. A lot of them are good with sitting in jail because they feel like, hey, I'm good. It's a consequence for me. I'll be looked at as a martyr, and we can still get our political will done. And they used it with violence. So we have this goes on. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The violence of conservatives, and this people, what I'm talking about, has just been in the last 4 to 6 months. Everything I'm talking about here has just been in the last 4 to 6 months that's been happening. Like a U.S. candidate in New Mexico, he lost his race. So what did he do? He hired a gunman to go to these Democrat supporters, his Democrat rival, and people like that, and campaign managers, and have this guy go and do drive-by shootings at their houses. Actually did that in New Mexico. Felt like it was, hey, he was justified politically to do that because they think they're the real Americans. These other people, these commie socialists, have no rights. They shouldn't be allowed to do this, even though these are American citizens he's talking about. These are the people you are free to believe what you want. Now, they say socialism and communism and all this stuff, but they're morally used as boogeyman words because a lot of these people, they're not communists or socialists. They just disagree with them on policy, and mostly they're just part of a different political party. They've registered to a different political party, and that is enough in some of these cases. In some of these cases, that's it. Like, for instance, I saw a video, a guy went off on Carl Tuckerson who said, hey, you know what? You even just admitted you hate people who voted for Biden. If they voted for Biden, if they registered to a certain political party, well, you hate them already. Even though you don't know anything about them, Carl Tuckerson hates you if you voted for Biden and you are part of the Democratic Party if you're registered to it. Well, he hates you already. He doesn't even need to know you. He just needs to hate you. And that's where we're at with conservative values right now. These are conservative Republican values today, fomenting violence and being good with it, being violent, having their followers be violent through ways of stochastic terrorism. So now here locally in Oklahoma, we have a few things on this. One, just this week, we had the principal of Western Heights Elementary resign. Well, why did he resign? Well, not until recently. He did drag queen stuff and would video this, put it out so that kids could read a book or whatever. And that's what he did, reading with drag queen. And that's what he did. And it wasn't sexual in any way or anything he did, but see, Ryan Walters took that. And Ryan Walters campaigned on it. And Ryan Walters got that Kaya Root chick to dox the principal at Western Heights. Well, what happened was death threats, bomb threats, all kinds of threats come in. So all kinds of social media threats come in. So what does he do? He resigned. He just resigned last week. Why does he say he resigned? Well, he was getting so many death threats. Not only was he getting death threats, the school was getting threats. The school was having to spend nearly $60,000 more than they needed to for security because of all the threats being garnered by Walters and Rudchick. Because, see, they use stochastic terrorism through their followers to threaten this guy. And it pressured him to quit. So then Ryan Walters comes out and takes credit for this, saying, look what we did. We pressured him through our social media campaign and everything else to make him resign. And you know what? That stochastic terrorism, it worked. Because the guy resigned. Of course, I get it. The principal, he's not a political guy. He just wants to do his job. He's got a PhD in education, and he's got a doctorate in education. And here's a guy who's knowledgeable, knows how to teach kids and everything else and really make them learn and make them become something that we want in society. And he's gone, you see, because he was pressured. And he's not a political person, doesn't want to be, so he's gone. And this you can see this in all kinds of things, even with when it comes to OGBYN and OGBYN deserts that we have in Oklahoma, because you guys got a bunch of crazy laws. I just want to do my job, and I want to do it in a place where I don't have to worry about stuff and be stressed out. So they don't come here. So here you go. He quit. Ryan Walters takes credit for it. Thanks his supporters for being violent to this guy, which makes sure that it works. And this tells you that these principles, these values of conservatism will continue. They will continue threatening people because it works. It works to shut people up and get you to forego your First Amendment rights, which these conservatives absolutely hate. So that's what we have here locally. And anyway, this goes on, bigger, broader stuff with Donald Trump even. You got Steve Bannon out saying that, hey, you know what? If you're a non-Christian nationalist, meaning you're not one, then you need to be purged. You need to die. Student for Trump guy gets charged with a gun crime because he threatened a woman with a gun. Trump refuses to say to his supporters not to be violent. Don't be violent. They ask him, hey man, would you do that? Nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell them not to be violent because it works for them. Even Roger Stone, down to Roger Stone. Roger Stone, who worked for the Trump campaign, got convicted on 2 felonies, and then Trump pardoned him, even was caught saying to someone, the 2 leading Democratic congressmen, they need to die. We need to make sure they die. We need to send a message. Falwell, somebody, we need to make sure that they die. People see it, and they know to shut up and leave Trump alone. Let him win. This was before he ran on the last campaign. That, yeah, we need to kill some Democrats to send a message. And they're good with this message. It's a political one that they're trying to send. And they're using terrorism, violence, stochastic terrorism, as we're seeing with Ryan Walters and Kaya Rudchick. So that's what we see right now. We're seeing a bunch of political violence. And this seems to always happen even worse in a presidential general election year, as we're seeing now, because they start to get nervous, they start to get worried, and so they want to pressure people through ways of intimidation and violence to not vote, to not support people, to not use their First Amendment rights to support people or put out their message or their political message if it should go against the conservative will of the nation. That's where we're at right now. Conservative values of political violence. And they're willing to use it. And they see that it works. So they're going to be willing to use it more. I expect to see more and more of social media threats, of email, telephone threats, of actual threats. People going to the border and trying to shoot people, trying to shoot police officers and start a race or civil war. That's where we're at today in our nation. We'll see what if it continues after the presidential election. But this is an election year, so it could get wild. Anyway, this is Across the Desk, and we'll see you guys next week.